I love bacon, bacon, bacon. I would play it, but I don't know that our viewers really like it. Maybe if we like cut that out for like the audio when we upload. Also, I'm always curious. Like, could we could also when we upload to Spotify, couldn't we just upload the full podcast too, and not just the audio? Because through Spotify they do video.
I would have to find another platform to do it separately, which I can do.
No,
But it
no,
would
no, no. No need to add one more thing to your plate. I think what would be cool though is maybe we should open up a behind the beards cloud space where we could save the audio or the videos that they'll get uploaded to, so that
yeah.
so that maybe I could do some clipping and stuff like that to help out, but it'll be in a shared cloud that we financially pay for.
Financially pay for.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure like the Google Drive is like. Oh, I didn't even add one. My bad.
That's right. I got you.
Oh man, time flies.
Time flies. Time's fun when you're having flies.
Time is fun when you're
Um,
having flies. So, have you watched? Maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't want to spoil it for people. It's been a couple weeks. Have you watched the Book of Boba Fett at all?
I have not yet.
Oh, well then I won't say anything.
Um,
There has been quite some controversy
really?
in the movie. Yes, there has been. This doesn't spoil anything, but the old community of people who've read books, who've been Star Wars fans their whole lives, and all this kind of stuff, are getting really upset and annoyed with some of the decisions that Disney and the movie makers are making. They are making decisions. You know, they're so. I guess let me say this: everyone is so conscious about like. Okay, let me start again. You think about the Harry Potter movies, right?
Right.
And people. Okay, thanks. Uh, anyway, they're so conscious about like lore, you know.
Right.
You know, the biggest controversy for Harry Potter right now is that you know, you have a human, a normal human, who like Dumbledore gives him a wand, and so there has to be some sort of recollection or making right in that scenario because we've already seen in the movies and the books that if a non-magic user tries to use a wand, something really bad happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there has to be like a reason. There has to be something there that's going to fix the lore for Harry Potter.
You're talking about with the new Dumbledore movie, right?
With the new Dumbledore movie
Right.
that's coming out, the new Fantastic Beasts movie. And so, and the same thing like with Lord of the Rings. Like there's a big Fade community. There's a lot of lore there. There's a lot of reasoning and stuff behind that. So same thing with Star Wars, except for what they've done with Star Wars is that they have tried to be more popular and give people temporary excitement. And so the community base is getting really annoyed because there's discrepancies. You know, there's discrepancies in movies, from books, from recent new canon books that they've published and said, this is what happened, this is what happened. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden in their TV shows, and they're like, oh, and their response, the writer's response is, Hey, don't look for flaws, just enjoy it. And it's kind of like a huge like disrespect to, hey, maybe put a little bit more effort and work into making sure that you get things right.
Just cover your plot lines, right?
So
And
so
like
there's a
no,
big,
especially when you're recording like a prequel,
yeah.
something that comes before. Um, you have to honor, the storyline you've already set up. And when you're
Yeah.
recording something that comes after, don't forget about where we've been. Come on.
So in the book of Boba Fett, there's a scene that everyone's like if you don't know Star Wars, you're like, oh, that's so cool, yeah, that makes sense. But if you like know Star Wars and read anything, you're like, what?
That's terrible.
How does that even? That doesn't even exist anymore.
You can't do that.
Like that's destroyed. And it's in the book that it's destroyed. Like you see it being destroyed in the graphic novel. So anyway, but since you haven't seen it, I can't say what it is, and then I just feel awkward now.
Nah, I'll watch it and then we can talk about it.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, hey, good morning, everybody. This is Behind the Beards. And here on Behind the Beards, we pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and reveal the things that go on in the hearts and minds of your church and ministry leaders. I'm Joshua Fowler, a preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And my beautifully redly bearded brother on the other side of the screen here, Aaron Partlow, a youth minister in Longview, Texas.
Sometimes I wish like there was a elongated version of my first name, because I call you Josh and you're like, oh, I'm Joshua Fowler. I want to be like,
Joshua sounds more official.
I'm Arangio Partlow. You can call me Aaron for short.
Well, we could just go with the old-fashioned Aaron.
Well, that's less professional, I feel like.
That's not been overplayed at all, has it?
Not at all. Not at all.
I bet you've never heard this one.
I did watch a funny video the other day of a substitute teacher. Or no, she was a sub, but she was a well-known sub. And she just like misread everyone's name with a straight face like that. And she made it about 3/4 of the way through before like everyone was cracking up and she was cracking up. It was pretty funny. She did a good job.
Yeah, I like the one where she's like mispronouncing all the names in a random fashion. They're like, "No, my name is David, not David."
Yeah, right.
Because all the funny ones have been, "What is your name?" And I don't know. I completely lost my train of thought there.
Hilarious. Good point.
Yeah, good point. Hey, what's new in Longview?
What's new in Longview?
What's new in Longview? Hey, this is gonna be a new segment, okay? What's new in Longview?
What's new in Longview? Not much is going on. Well, that's not true. We have a lot going on. We're just kind of crazy busy. I've been watching some basketball games of some teens, some baseball games. I'm trying to plan a lock-in. Kids keep asking when we're going to do one. I'm trying to find the perfect date to do that. We've got a ski trip coming up.
I've got a podcast
March.
episode you can listen to about lock-ins.
Lock-ins. Actually, I hate lock-ins, but I like the way that I do lock-ins. And if you do lock-ins right, I feel like lock-ins are one of those things where they are terrible no matter what, but you can make them less terrible by doing them correctly. And there's a science and there's a method and there's experience that comes with putting on and doing a successful lock-in.
Yeah, true.
So,
but we just had our bilingual service this past week.
Muy bien.
Muy bien, that's right. We got to talk about some things that are going on down in
Honduras.
Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Our Hispanic ministers headed down there in March for their driving supplies down to a sister church.
Well, we go. We have a church that we began in Matamoros, which is right across the border in Brownsville. Mm-hmm. But there's also a work that we support in a little city called Ocosingo, which is it's 44-hour drive
from
here. It's almost to Guatemala. And so there's a sign when you enter the jungle outside of the city that says,
Welcome to the jungle.
it actually says the exact opposite.
Oh,
Preachers, religions, elders, pastors are not welcome here unless we invite you in.
whoa.
And the guy who we help support in Okosingo has started 10 churches in the jungle because he was born there and he lived his early life there and he speaks their dialect. They allow him to come in. And so there are 10 independent churches that have their own preacher and their own, just completely independent.
Wow.
And it's just a really cool story, you know,
That
it's
is cool.
pretty intimidating when you walk into a place and they say, by the way, if you're bringing your religion in here, you're not welcome by penalty of law. And they also say, by the way, the police that you will encounter are not the law. The people are the law. And there's signs posted everywhere to that effect. And then right next it says, be careful. There's jaguars. Like,
Yeah. Oh, okay, good.
whole different level of, danger and risk involved there that
Yeah, no
I just
joke.
don't understand. But it was really cool to see the pictures and tell those stories to the people with some of the things that they're doing. We're doing with their investment in the church, and just a really good day, man. I love that Sunday. It's hard. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but so rewarding. And those bilingual Sundays.
I always love bilingual services. I wish we would do more of them. This last time we did one, we did something I've never done before. Like I've always done like one verse English, one verse Spanish, and you're kind of stumbling sometimes. But we sang some songs that everyone knew the tune to, and one projected in Spanish and one projected in English, and we sang them at the same time. And I'd never heard something more beautiful in my entire life than that.
That's
Like
pretty
that
cool.
was just, it was fantastic. And I was like, man, this is the way to do it. Like it's cool to sing. It's cool to like mix it up and do what the other thing as well. But this was really cool.
So we do both, mainly because our English speakers like to sing them together. Our Spanish speakers like to have them separate because they like to sing in English. Because a lot of them are
Yeah.
learning English. A lot more of them are learning English than our people are learning Spanish.
Hey,
And so,
48 days on Duolingo right here, everybody.
very nice.
Thank you.
So we do two. Like two of the songs we sing first in English, then in Spanish, and then two of our songs we sing like together. Makes a pretty good blend. But it is cool when you have people singing in different languages,
cool.
the same song versus the same words.
That's cool. And I found out where a lot of our Hispanic members sit when we do combined. So we know we sit over there now.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
It's fun. Well, today we're gonna hit an interesting topic. We're gonna talk. This is kind of, I think, like this is like a true behind the beards kind of an episode, and the heart of what we want to do on this podcast. So we want to talk about like some of the differences in full-time ministry and volunteer work. What does it mean, and what are some of the key factors? What are the things that really stand out for when you work full-time for a church, when you are a paid staff member for a church or a paid minister? Maybe that's probably a better way to do that. And so we want to talk about that this morning. We want to talk about some challenges, some good things. We're not trying to be negative or anything like that, but there's definitely a reality that comes with working full time for a church. Josh has some experience in that area. I have some experience in that area, and so we wanted to just take an episode to kind of share that. So maybe you are young and you are entering into a ministry position, or you're looking forward to doing that. This is a good episode for you. Maybe you're getting out of the secular world and want to work in a church because you feel called to kind of do that. Maybe you've been volunteering as a volunteer youth minister for a while, and the church has said, hey, we'd love to support you full time if you want to quit your job and do this full time. Let us bend your ear on the topic a little bit, just sort of things that you could be prepared for.
Yeah, and the truth is, especially in this, post-COVID era that the church is moving into, there are a lot of ministers that are having to get into, either bivocational or,
Yeah.
completely separately vocational work, continuing to serve the church. and there's some real differences, that come up.
That's true.
I think one of the key differences I have found moving from working in the car business and doing church work. I want to say on the side, but not as your main source of support. And then moving into ministry, I find that as a full time minister, I devoted a lot of time before to really being concerned about the church and what transpires inside the church and how we move forward. But as a full time minister, when this is like the thing that I do, like 100% of my time and effort on a daily basis is completely devoted to the church and her people. Um, and it's easy for me to expect other people to be that same way. And I forget that they have a lot of other things. They have jobs that that consume a whole lot of their time and their energy.
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't think about the church a lot or care about it.
Yeah.
It's just a much different makeup of what's expected of them, and that's one of the main differences that kind of jump out at me right away. Anything jump out as far as that goes?
Well, some of the things that jump out to me is I don't know why. Like I have a blank all of a sudden. Oh, there it is. Okay, so some of the I don't know what just happened there.
I thought we were just taking a moment of silence for
just taking a moment of silence for all the ministers out there. No, I think one of the major differences. Yeah, I think that's a good point. That I spend a lot of my time really focused on the youth group and the inner dwellings of that, and I have a lot of time to be able to do more of that. I would say a big difference for me is that I have a lot more time to really focus in on a Bible class and to make a Bible class better. This sounds really bad and not humble, so don't take it this way, but I feel like my Bible classes should be elevated to a higher standard because I have more time to really research and to really work on it and to present the material. I feel like I have a better understanding of the youth group because I spend a lot more time praying for them and being with them. And so when I teach a Bible class, I kind of know how to teach that Bible class in different ways to reach different kids. And I can tell when like this group is kind of drifting off, so I know how to pull them back in and be able to pull them back in and be able to kind of juggle these plates and work the room, kind of a sense. I think another big key part, a big difference between volunteer and full-time work is the expectance of time. I'll just say this, like, my work day is Sunday through Thursday, and Friday, Saturdays are supposed to be kind of like my off days, right? Those are my days off, And I always feel like it's always funny because even as a minister, like you say day off and you kind of chuckle, right? You kind of laugh. You're like, yeah, those are my days off. That's funny because if you were working, if you're working at a full-time job and your job was like, hey, Friday, Saturdays are your days off, but we want you to work most of those days. You won't get paid extra. You're like, well, no, like that's not gonna how it work.
Yeah.
But in ministry, you will see in some places, I'll just speak from my experience. In my experience, you'll see more of a flexible kind of a work schedule. And in my opinion, like as long as work is getting done, as long as things are being taken care of in a productive and a good way, and we are accountable to God and we're accountable to somebody about our time, we have a different kind of a work schedule, because at the end of the day, a lot of youth events take place on Fridays, a lot of football games, a lot of other games that I go to support my teenagers, or even yet to support their parents and to build those relationships. Those take place on Fridays and Saturdays, and so there is this different expectation of time and we have to be responsible with that, because we have to, for me, I have to be a responsible husband, and I have to be a responsible father. And so I need to be there for my family, but at the same time, I have to be a responsible minister and be building those relationships any way that I can.
Yeah, and that's so one of the interesting things, about that is, number one, that's not a conscious thing. It's not a conscious thing that we do. It's not a conscious thing that, the church does generally. And, like, again, from my experience, if someone says, "Hey, can you do this?" I said, "Look, or will you be at the office on Friday? I have some things I need to come up and do. I need somebody to let me in." And I say, Friday's my day off, but I can meet you up there. They're like, no. I don't want you to come up here on your day off. But we don't think we have the freedom to express that.
Right.
And I think we have more freedom than we think we do, or will assume that we do, because our people want to honor that. But they say, no, there's a lot of people close by. If you're just going to be there, I was going to stop by. But we assume that there's an expectation, maybe that there's not.
Well, and maybe there's been one in the past, and so maybe
Right.
like things have shifted or things have changed. I think that's a huge part. I think something also that you can think about that's a big difference between working in a secular world or working in a is that there can be some dynamic leadership or dynamic changes that happen in your work environment, with just a new staff member or with a new elder, or even with just some new deacons, or even with just new families. And so there is I think if you can't practice patience and flexibility, I feel like ministry is going to be very difficult for you, because there's a lot of patience with myself and with other people, and there's a lot of flexibility that has to be done.
Yeah, and I was going to say something else, but I'll say it here in a little bit when we talk about some of the challenges of full-time ministry. I think it fits better over there. So there's a lot of challenges that specifically come with just being a volunteer worker as well.
Yeah.
And some of it we've talked about, but not having the resources handy to do the job that you want to do in the way that you want to do it.
Right.
And I think that is where we can, as full-time ministers, maybe bridge some of those gaps. In April, we're going to have a guest on, Josh Kincaid, who writes curriculum for churches to use. And having something prepared, because I know that these volunteers who are coming in don't have the time necessarily to devote to the kind of study that we would do if we were teaching that class. But can we provide them resources to bridge that gap, that allow them to do the job they want to do in the way they want to do it? Because like for me, that was the biggest challenge of doing that was, I really want to do that, but I don't have the time to do it the way I want to do it, and would feel good about it.
And sidebar there, even if you are a volunteer and you have curriculum, like, for all the goodness in the world, please read it before Sunday morning, before you teach your class. Like, don't just walk in there and be like, "Oh, I've taught this passage a million times. I'll just wing it from my notes." Please don't wing it. How many times have you gone up to lead the communion talk? You said, "Well, I've been thinking about this all week," and what you mean by that is, "Well, I Googled that this morning." So don't be those people. Like, put a little effort into. You can find the time to pre-read for your Bible class on Sunday. Please, for your students and for yourself.
Preparation's important.
Preparation is super important.
And that can be a hard thing when you just don't feel like you have the time that you want to devote. Other
that's
things,
that's a whole nother retreat, right?
That's right.
Many retreats on the idea of you do have time. It's just whether or not you're willing to sacrifice for it.
And other aspects of working a secular job and volunteering for the church, that are like really, really challenging.
Well, I think if you're trained in customer service, which a lot of companies aren't, right? Like we're seeing a lot of that now, that customer service is just, I get disgusted at the amount of, I get disgusted on how people treat employees, but I also get disgusted at a certain point of how like employees like treat, customers in a lot of things. When I worked at a Jack in the Box, I was really trained in customer service, and I excelled at Jack in the Box because of my customer service. It was about doing what was right for the customer and treating them with respect. And I think sometimes in church work, that one of the key differences is like sometimes people might say something rude. They don't mean to be upsetting or to be rude, but maybe somebody will say something that's rude or is hard. And when you have those kind of moments, it's really hard. It's really hard because you work in a church, and so you think everyone needs to condone and act themselves in a Christian manner. And the fact is, sometimes that doesn't happen. And so when you enter into full-time ministry, sometimes that can hit extra hard because you're like, well, this is church people. We're all supposed to be good people. And we forget that, well, no, we're all fallen and sinful people who attend and go to church and rely on the grace and mercy of Jesus. And sometimes that doesn't shine through as well as it should. And so when you're working full-time ministry, you really have to be, when I talk about flexibility and patience, that's part of it is that you have to be ready. And so that's one of those big differences that I see, that in the secular world, sometimes you can just be like, all right, you're a jerk, get out of here, and I'll never see you again. But in church work, I will see you next week or in a month when you decide to start coming back.
Yeah, right. And along that same line, we have, whether it's a volunteer that's leading an event for a youth ministry or teaching a class in the adults or, doing something here or there for the church, the people who are in the church setting have all sat in a class where a paid staff member either planned the event, planned the retreat, taught the class, preached the sermon. And so they have a level of expectation that doesn't change just because a volunteer has come into place, whether we're in a time of transition, whether we're on a vacation or sabbatical and there's someone else coming in. There's still this expectation of what they're going to get when they come.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do when you have a 40, 50, 60-hour a week job that's consuming, your time and energy, and you have your family, and you don't have that full-time capacity to sit and plan. You don't have the resources. You don't have the friends in ministry who have already done some things that can give you pointers and help.
Yeah, the network.
But the expectation of the people that you are voluntarily serving doesn't change. And so that can be, one of the biggest challenges. But there's some challenges in full-time ministry as well. A whole different set of them that come about. One of those for me is distinguishing, like you mentioned earlier, the challenge of going to, your kids' games that might be on a Friday or Saturday. Mm-hmm. Distinguishing the things I do as a minister from the things that we should all be doing as brothers and sisters in Christ.
Right.
Like I go to some of the, the kids in our church, you go to some of their games or their competitions, and it's like, well, we kind of expected you to be here because you're the minister. It's like, well, I'm not here as a minister. I'm here as your friend because I want to get to know you as a friend, and I want to show support for this. But everything gets assigned as, oh, you're just doing this because you're the youth minister or the preacher. And like really and truly what I would love to have a calendar that has all of the kids' events and activities and recitals so that we as a church could show up and support these families and these kids and the things that they're doing. And so separating those two things is really hard if you're, on staff as a minister.
I mean, sidebar, when you enter into full-time ministry, it is really, it's really difficult to find like friends. Mm-hmm. Just in general, just friends. Like, hey, I'm not coming to you as the youth minister. I'm not coming to you as the preacher. I'm coming to you as just your friend, and I just want to be your friend. Has nothing to do with ministry, because you are the preacher. Like, you are the minister. You are the youth minister. So at what point, like, at what point is Aaron coming to talk to me because he wants to get to know me, or is he talking to me because he wants me to teach next quarter? And so, like,
And it can't be both.
Like,
it can't be both.
It can't be both. It can't be, yeah. And so that gets hard and that gets difficult. And so sometimes ministry can get a little lonely when it comes to that. So what are some of the challenges of volunteer work? What do you think about, like, challenges? I think some of those challenges for volunteer work is finding that extra time, but then also the expectation of wanting to do something better. I think of volunteer youth ministers, and I see so much passion, and they're like, man, I want to do something bigger, I want to do something better, but I'm also working a full-time job, so I have to do that at the same time with as much passion and as quality. So I think one of the challenges of volunteer work is finding that extra time, which I think we've already hit that point and kind of hammered it home. So what do you think for volunteer work?
I'd already moved on.
Okay, well then, I'm just an idiot. So I'll just let you lead.
No, it's okay.
You're the lead dance partner.
No, I was just mentioning earlier about the the challenges we have as ministers in separating those times.
We're way down there on the list.
Yeah, it is 10:27. So
it is. I just noticed that too.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're talking, like, time just flies, right? The other challenge I have, the difficulty I have is there are things that I have studied, and there are things that people have that brought to my attention because I do have it's my job to go with those things. And so because I have time to pore over something and think of something and read about something and listen to 4 or 5 other people talk about this and really get to a place that I find something really valuable and enlightening and empowering, it's taken me a long time to get to this point, and I have a lot of time to devote to getting there. And I get so excited to share that with someone, and from the first words out of my mouth, I realize they are not here.
They're not engaged.
And they're not ready to hear what I have to say because I forget how much time it's taken me to come to that understanding. And I can't expect them just to take one bit from my lesson or my sermon and have the same level of excitement for what's about to come. And we just move at different paces. And I think it's designed to be that way. I think it's healthy, and it's supposed to. But we have to learn to be patient there. So
recently, I've been there. I had this really great, very great theological, doctrinal, like, and my kids love it when I say those words because, like, oh, we're going to talk about doctrine. What's this? And I'm like, okay, it's really not. It's really not as, like, crazy heavy as you think. It's just one of those words that you just hear and you're like, ooh. And so, like, we had this really deep, this really intense Wednesday night Bible class that we were about to have. And I noticed as they're sitting around the tables, I got a lot of people who are sitting like this, who are really tired, who are really exhausted. And, we do prayer requests, and they're like, hey, man, this week is a really rough week. We have a lot of activities for school. We also have the state testing is all this week. And so people are physically and mentally exhausted. And so I'm thinking, what's good for my teens right now? To dive into this? Or would it be better to, hey, look, there's a PowerPoint on my desktop that says JTS 2020 morning worship.
Right.
So I go, hey, well, we just did prayer requests, and I kind of think tonight would be a good night for us to just kind of sing. We're just going to sing tonight. And so having that flexibility and doing that. So there's a challenge there because I spent a lot of time on this lesson, and I want to prepare and give this lesson, but then you have to read the room as well. Maybe tonight's not the night to go into that. Maybe tonight's a night that we do just need to lay our burdens down and we need to praise and we need to sing. and there's a challenge there to do that. You know?
Yeah,
So that's
and
one of the challenges of full-time ministry is, I guess this is what I was trying to say is that, yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like, sometimes I can be well more invested in a service project, in a sermon series, in a Bible class, and it's because I've spent a lot of time and a lot of passion, a lot of energy on this and setting this up, but I haven't done a good job at passing that energy on and getting other people hyped up and ready for it as well. And so they're not in the same place that I am. They are asking questions that I asked at the beginning, and I need to address those in order to get them to where I am.
and I shouldn't expect them to be. You know, and I struggle with that. That's not just a church thing. I struggle with that in my marriage as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it is so important to like create pathways for you to grow together with the people in your life. And I can't expect my wife to ask the same questions I ask or have the same knowledge, but do we open up avenues for us to talk about those things?
I think Lauren makes a good point here, too.
Go for
I don't
it.
know if you want to go into that.
Yeah.
But she says, I think the challenge on both ends is finding time to commit in an overcommitted society and not just be another noise to teens. I think that's a hard part of full-time ministry is to find your voice and to find your balance. Because you don't want to just be all events. You don't just want to be another thing on the calendar. We're working towards discipleship. And what does that really mean? And how do you find that? And that's really, as a volunteer, you're like, oh, it's easy. I get to plan Bible classes. I get to do this. It's going to be really great. But then when you walk into full-time ministry, you realize, well, no, there's a lot more thought processes and there's a lot more patience because I'm here and I'm ready to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and I've dedicated my life to it. But how do I get you here and how do I work through that process? And it can be extremely frustrating to see people with a lack of faith or a lack of motivation, right? But it can also be, rewarding as well. And so there has to be that patience.
Well, I think that's where you see the beauty of the two working together coming in, because you have someone who has been allowed the time and the energy to get to a place a little further down the road.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have someone else who is, still volunteering, still leading, still in that position of teaching and guiding and planning, but also in that immediate moment recognizes the tension between the two.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's not like it's kind of a push and pull kind of a thing. It's like, yeah, we want to get there, but this isn't just the kids. This isn't just the people who are struggling with this. Here I am as one of your comrades, one of your partners, one of these guys that's helping you lead this thing. And I'm kind of wrestling with this as well. And it works so well when we work together. And when we as ministers can be a resource to those volunteers,
yeah,
especially for those who are really willing to give and donate, because volunteers don't volunteer their time to serve the church if they're really not excited and passionate about what the church is doing,
right?
Because it takes work.
But what about that idea of having so many different people at different places? When you're in full-time ministry, you're working with a vast amount of people. You have people who are extremely passionate. You have people who are super unpassionate, about it. You have people who you're like, wow, they're really like faithful and religious. Like, that they take the time to go over, a Bible lesson with their kids every night. And then you have other parents who are like, I don't even know how to tell my own children about Jesus, but I can talk about baseball. So let's talk about baseball. I'm not going to talk about, well, hey, what'd you learn in Sunday morning class? We're going to go over, hey, what were some pros and cons of your baseball game that you just played? And there's this realization that when you enter into full-time ministry that you're working with a vast amount of people, and how do you get them, to the same spot? How do you reach them? Also, when you're in full-time ministry, how do you deal, how do you handle this? Prepare yourself mentally for this. Josh, I just spent an hour and a half writing a super great email. It's got good graphics, but it also points you to all the information. Then the next day, you know, what do you get? Hey, when is this and where's it at? Did you not see the awesome email that I just spent a lot of time in because we had a meeting about communication and how I need to be a better communicator? So now I'm putting an effort in to be a good communicator. But are you, like, is there a box to check for like being communicated to? Like, what's the word for that? Like, I'm a good communicator, but are you? I mean, a good listener, a good reader, a good communicated.
You're branching off into territory that is probably a whole podcast, because I need a podcast on how do I not be snarky in my response. That's what I need.
Wow, you use Grammarly, and then it has a setting that checks for passive aggressive responses. And boy, that was humbling when I saw that, and it was like popped up, and it's like yellow, and it's like, this is passive aggressive, and I'm like, oh, it is? Okay, I guess I'll rewrite that. I don't want to come off passive aggressive at all, because that's not healthy in my setting. And so, well, it's not healthy in any setting. But I think that's a thing that you have to be prepared for in ministry. You know, I make announcements. I love this. I have one kid in the youth group, and he is so funny and he's so clever. He's so smart. And I'll make an announcement Sunday morning, and I can guarantee you, on the second and fourth Sunday when we have small groups, well, actually, I can guarantee you almost every Sunday, he will text me about 4:00. Hey, Aaron, do we have small groups tonight? Oh, where's it at? And I'm like, Eric, please, my friend, I announced it this morning, and I specifically told you. But it's because his mom asked him, and he's not, maybe chooses not to remember, or it's just easier sometimes just to text Aaron than it is to, So if somebody could create a Google number that has automated answers for questions, so that I can put the questions in and then it'll automatically respond the answers, that would be fantastic.
And
hey, how much is church camp? Automated message.
This is all free, right? Because this isn't really kind of in line here. But in some ways it is, because here's the challenge of being in full-time ministry. That's what I mean. I have to get past the fact that they didn't read my email, or they didn't retain my email, or that they don't want to go search and find it and look for themselves. And I have to train myself to answer that question with a mindset that says, man, they want to be there. And they're making plans to be there.
Yes.
And I have to get over myself and say, thank you for asking and being sure. Here you go, and here's when it is. By the way, bring a friend.
Bring a friend. Oh, that's good. I'm going to start adding that. Bring a friend.
And so
that's so true, Josh.
Shift, right?
And that's what I mean. I don't feel like we're straying away from the topic at all, because I think that's something. I think that's something that people don't realize, that when you enter into full-time ministry, like these are the little things that chink away at your armor, right? They just take little chunks out after and after and after, and if you allow those to do that, it'll wear you down. But if you coat yourself in grace and mercy, if you coat yourself in that exact attitude right there, hey, this is somebody who wants to be there, and so I want to give them the information. You know, hey, the email that I do, there's a group of people who read that email and study that email. At the very least, my elders read the email, and they tell me every Sunday, man, that was a good email. I really appreciate the effort that you put in communicating. Hey, that's worth it. It's worth it, because they're informed and they know what's going on, and people are asking them questions the same that they're asking me questions, but now they have answers instead of having to search for it. And so yeah, those are some of the small things in ministry that can really wear you down.
Yeah.
That we don't think about, and that we, as ministers, when we get together and talk, these are the things that we, gripe about, about these things. And it's because there's a commonality, and because we lift each other up and we laugh about it. And I think that's our response to it is we just laugh about it, because it's a reality, and there's nothing that in this world that's going to change it. Except for, because we want them there. Because the bigger there's always this bigger picture and this always bigger purpose, right? And that's, making disciples of Christ and leading people closer to Jesus. And that's more important than me being frustrated over a text message that I get from a teen every Sunday.
I got to say, that's a good job. I thought we were off the rails. I thought we were going somewhere deep in the weeds.
No, man.
And you brought that around. It fit really well. So,
the train tracks are in the weeds.
That's right. They're in the weeds. I think here's the behind the beards moment here.
Yeah.
It's why did you choose ministry?
Ooh.
If you kind of look at these things,
It's intense.
If you have those things, why would you choose ministry? I'll let you think about it for a minute. I'm not gonna let you off the hook, but I did both. I spent 12 years working in the car business. I was a deacon at the church I was at. I was teaching class. I was preaching at a nursing home in the afternoon, and so we were doing like good, fruitful work for the church we were at while I was working. But I personally never felt completely fulfilled. Like, it was good, the work we were doing, and I knew that the people we were working for appreciated it. Do you have sound on your phone? I was like, I just got feed, or is that I just got an echo for a minute. That was weird.
You just got an echo.
So, and I am so thankful. I mean, we need people who are able to volunteer, but I felt like for me, God was calling me to something more involved with the church, that he had prepared me for something more involved. And while I was doing good work that was effective and fruitful and it was good, I just felt like there was more that he was asking of me. And I never felt like I was doing everything that God had asked me to do. And so that's why I ultimately chose ministry. I tried to walk that line for a while and just never felt right. I never felt whole. I never felt complete. And as hard as it has been, there's some days where I'd say, man, I can't believe I chose this life. I can't believe I chose to answer this call. And I don't really think I would do it again if I had to. But it only sticks with me for a minute or two. And then I realize, God has me here for a reason. And I really do feel like God has prepared me for this. And I feel fulfilled in the work. So that's why I choose it. And that's why I would choose it again.
Why did I choose ministry? Josh, I don't know. To be honest, I have no idea. Guys, I mean that honestly. Like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't in full-time ministry. I have a lot of passions. I really like pizza. I really like making pizza. There was a point in my life where I thought maybe I'd open up my own pizza shop. And it'd be a sell by the slice. Try to place ourselves next to middle schools and high schools and kind of do some after-school specials and be a place where people can hang out and study, pay for pizza and soda. And work on homework and do tutoring as well, all within one facility. So kind of being like this community outreach and being like something that uplifts and builds up the community by also like selling and making pizza, something that I'm passionate about. I don't even know how that would really work out and how that would make money. My mom said to me, she said, from a young age, I knew that you were different than my other two children. I knew that you were going to leave home and that I was going to have to prepare my heart. She kind of remembers saying this to me. She said, before I left, I thought I did it for the money. Yeah, we did. Anyway, that's funny. That was a comment somebody just made on our live feed for people listening to the podcast. But she said, I have to prepare my heart because I knew that my youngest son was going to leave. Like, he was going to leave and he was going to be doing good things, not leave like in a bad way. And I think there was something in me. I went to OC. People don't know this about me. Like, I don't have a degree in youth ministry at all. I have a degree in Bible with a minor in missions. That's a focal point on multicultural congregations, which is a lot to say, and it sounds really impressive. But it's basically I have a generic Bible degree with a minor in missions and world religions. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to preach full time. I enjoy preaching. I feel like I do a decent job in the pulpit. I really am interested in foreign missions. I thought that would be really great to live overseas and do foreign missions. Matter of fact, my wife and I's plan originally was to move to Japan and teach English as a second language in Japan and do mission work. But that didn't. God had different plans for us. And so I didn't think youth ministry was where I wanted to go, but here I am 10 years in, and I'm still doing youth ministry, and I love it, and can't see myself doing anything else. I love God's people. I think I have this passion and a love for God's church that even though I see the ugly and the bad side, and I've seen some hard leadership moments where I've been very disappointed. I've seen some members of church that I've just been so disappointed in the way that they treat others and stuff like that, that there's still this love and a passion within me that says this is right. And when you work with the church, you're going to see the people, and people are broken, and I'm not perfect, and I say things that are really dumb, and I say things that can sometimes be mean. And I'm thankful to have a wife who partners in my ministry who says, hey, you need to be better. You need to not be so sarcastic, and kind of fixes me. And that reminds me and myself that, hey, we're not perfect. We are fallen. That's why we need Jesus. And so I have this love and this passion for what church is, for what church offers, what God's plan for the kingdom is. When we reach out to our communities, and our community says, wow, this is what like the Lord's church, means and what it does, or what it means for, children to enter into a children's ministry program and to be able to have a VBS and do these things. And they have these wonderful memories of singing and being together. When teenagers have that aha moment where it clicks and they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. I am broken, and God is the one who fixed me. Like I feel full and connected when I am worshiping and being with God in my life. When adults come and they say, man, I have tried everything else in my life to make myself happy and make my family work, but the only thing that seems to really work is when we're connected and going to church, and when our focus is on Jesus and not on ourselves. It's stuff like that. So I think I chose ministry because God chose me, and God said, Aaron, this is where like you can last. I always think of that song, like the Rubber Tree song. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I always think about it. Like I always think about being that rubber tree that, you're going to get beat and you're going to get slammed and you're going to get hit. But because you serve a higher power, because I serve God, and because God is greater and gooder and better than anything else in this entire world, I will bounce back. Because I love God and I love His church. Even though there's some ugly spots, but those aren't the parts from God. Those are the parts from the High Hopes song. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
That's the song. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's why I chose ministry.
I think it's an important distinction that we make that says to be a full-time minister is not a higher calling than to be a volunteer servant.
Not at all.
Of the church. It's just a different calling.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that we all have different callings. We're all called to serve the church in different and unique ways.
Yeah.
Some people are prepared to do other things. But yeah, and you say, I chose this because God chose me, right? And then you get to choose, and you're going to answer the call that God gave you, or you're going to go do something different. And when you're doing something different, you're just never going to feel completely fulfilled.
God's calling. Well, I would even say, go further, that God's calling you to serve, and it doesn't matter where He's calling you to serve. He's calling you to serve in whatever capacity. And I feel like God has called me to serve church people.
Right.
That God has called me into. So it's not a higher calling. It's just, I feel like the church is my mission field. Right. I feel like that's where God has called me. He didn't call me, I would love, Josh, I'm serious. Like I would love that pizza idea. Like that's like always been a secret dream of mine. Like I think that would be so cool to make pizza and to serve kids and teens and be this place, like this community, almost like a YMCA where they can come and study and learn and be in a safe environment, and eat pizza, and do that. Like, I think that's awesome. And that's a dream of mine, but I don't think that's where God's calling me. I think God called me to serve not that community, but full-time, church people.
I'd say not yet.
Not yet. Who knows?
It's not yet, right?
I have no idea. That might be in the future. The Behind the Beards pizza parlor.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, we want to thank y'all for being here today. What a weird episode. I hope it's been helpful. I don't know. I hope you see our passion and our love for the church, because that's one reason why we do this. We don't grow weary in doing this podcast and doing good because we love God's church. We love his people. We love you all. And we want to remind you of that passage always, all the time, especially when life gets really busy, when life gets crazy and hectic, to take that deep breath, to focus ourselves and to remind ourselves, don't grow weary in doing good. I'm Aaron, and this is Josh, and we will see you next week on Behind the Beards.
We're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Had to throw up that there during the little bumper.
No, that was good. That was good. All right, post-show people, we appreciate you, but today I got to jet a little bit.
Got a jet.